Today is Friday, August 25th, 2023. And this is the Dunkley Report. A preliminary U.S. intelligence assessment concluded that an intentional explosion caused the plane crash presumed to have killed a Russian mercenary leader. Yevgeny Prigozhin was eulogized Thursday by Vladimir Putin, even as suspicions grew that the Russian president was the architect of the assassination. One of the U.S. and Western officials who described the initial assessment said it determined that Prigozhin was very likely targeted, and that the explosion falls in line with Putin's history of trying to silence his critics. The officials did not offer any details about what caused the explosion. Several of Prigozhin's lieutenants were also presumed dead. Former President Donald Trump has been booked at a jail in Atlanta, forced to pose for a mugshot as he surrendered on charges that he illegally schemed to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia. Unlike his bookings for 3 other batches of charges, this one yielded a historic first: the mugshot of a former American president scowling at the camera. Trump and 18 others were indicted last week, accused of participating in a sprawling conspiracy to overturn his presidential election loss to Democrat Joe Biden. The Fulton County prosecution is the 4th criminal case against Trump since March, when he became the first former president in U.S. history to be indicted. Roads between the Atlanta airport and the Fulton County jail were blocked off as former President Donald Trump arrived in a motorcade to turn himself in on charges related to his efforts to remain in power after his 2020 election loss. This gave the scene something of a presidential aura, but Trump was going to do something no other president has ever done: surrender for booking on criminal charges and have a mugshot taken. As word spread that Trump was on his way, demonstrators near the jail's main entrance lined security barricades 2 to 3 deep. There were more Trump supporters than opponents braving the intense Georgia summer heat, but both groups were outnumbered by media. Former President Donald Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis have dominated the Republican presidential nomination fight for much of the year, but neither dominated the debate stage. Trump skipped the GOP's opening presidential primary debate Wednesday night. DeSantis showed up but was overshadowed for much of the night by political newcomer Vivek Ramaswamy. Ramaswamy has crept up in recent polls, leading to his position next to DeSantis at center stage, and Ramaswamy quickly showed why when he showcased his ready-for-video on-message approach. Ramaswamy's rivals attacked him for his lack of political experience and his view that the U.S. should stop supporting Ukraine. The Republican Party's presidential candidates are struggling to address growing concerns about climate change. To many conservatives, climate science is a liberal conspiracy theory. During the GOP presidential debate Wednesday night, candidates were asked to raise their hands if they believe human behavior is causing climate change. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis shut down the question and attacked the corporate media before anyone could raise a hand. Biotech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy called climate change a hoax. Only former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley acknowledged climate change is real. Leaders in the GOP's small but growing movement of environmental activists say their party must do better. Japan's tsunami-wrecked nuclear power plant in Fukushima is releasing its first batch of treated radioactive water into the Pacific Ocean. The operator showed in live video a staff member turn on a seawater pump on Thursday, starting the controversial project that's expected to last for decades. China responded by banning seafood from Japan, effective immediately. Shortly after China's announcement, the plant's operator said it will compensate Japanese business owners for damages suffered by export bans over the wastewater release. The Japanese government and the operator say the treatment and dilution exceeds international safety standards. Still, some scientists say the long-term impact needs attention. Firefighters are struggling against strong winds and hot, dry conditions to tame multiple wildfires ravaging Greece, including one in the country's northeast that officials say is the largest recorded in the European Union. The wildfires have left 20 people dead over the last week. Climate crisis and civil protection minister said arsonists were at work in some areas. Elsewhere in Europe, a fire on Tenerife in Spain's Canary Islands burning for more than a week, and another blaze in northwestern Turkey near the border with Greece were being brought under control, as were blazes in Portugal and Italy. Authorities say the retired police officer who opened fire at a popular Southern California bar entered and first shot his estranged wife and her dinner companion before firing at random. Orange County Sheriff Don Barnes said John Snelling had traveled to Southern California from Ohio, where he had been living. Barnes says Snelling killed 3 people and wounded 6 others before he was killed by deputies. Authorities say Snelling shot at people inside and outside Cook's Corner, a popular biker bar hosting its weekly spaghetti night. Snelling is a retired California police sergeant. Gun violence prevention research has experienced a small boom in the wake of mounting shooting deaths, expanded funding, and burgeoning advocacy. A growing number of cities are teaming with researchers to develop evidence-based plans to cut down on fatal shootings. In Tennessee, a state riven this year by a school shooting in Nashville and political turmoil afterward, the city of Knoxville is working on a program to reduce firearm homicides. It includes an outreach program, Turn Up Knox, that works with police and community advocates. Importantly, though, it does not count on new gun restrictions. That's key, since Tennessee has repeatedly moved to loosen gun laws. Iran and Saudi Arabia are among 6 nations that have been invited to join the BRICS bloc of developing economies, along with the United Arab Emirates, Argentina, Egypt, and Ethiopia. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, whose country presently chairs BRICS, made the announcement at a bloc summit Thursday in Johannesburg. BRICS is currently made up of the emerging economies of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and those 5 members agreed at this week's summit to expand the bloc in 2024. It currently represents around 40% of the world's population and more than a quarter of global GDP, although that is set to increase with the new members. Today's news was reported by the Associated Press. This has been the World News for Friday, August 25th, 2023. Thanks again for joining us at The Dunkley Report.